The next piece we're going to hear is Beethoven's Seventh Symphony. He considered it to be one of his finest works and to this day is still one of his most popular. What do you think it is that makes this so thrilling for audiences?
I think each of the four movements have something that thrills them. I mean, the first movement, after the opening introduction, once the flute and the oboe lead us into that opening allegro, then it just dances. From the minute the flute solo starts, it dances all the way through. At the end, we have this amazing bit where the cellos and basses have this bass line, which somebody is attributed to saying it was Beethoven's descent into madness. I don't agree with that at all. And so the end of the first movement's exciting, and then the second movement itself, I mean, at the premiere, it was immediately, they wanted it to be encored. So it was loved from the word go, the second movement, and it's one of the most famous pieces of Beethoven, if not all music. And the third movement, incredibly light and frothy. And the fourth movement is like this drive to the end, full of panache and rhythm. Actually, an ex-colleague of ours used to say that it didn't matter what the conductor did at the end of Beethoven's Seven, the audience would always go mad. He said you could bring in the Dagenham Girls piping band, and if they played the last page, the audience would still go mad over the end of Beethoven's Seven. And I think it's true. The end is such an exciting way to finish any piece, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it just builds and builds and builds, this relentless energy, and it finally all comes out in the last sort of 3 lines of the page. It's amazing. And I think I'm led to believe that the first ever 3/4 dynamic is right at the very end of the piece. So if that's not thrilling, I don't know what is.
Oh, exactly. For somebody to suddenly go, well, 2 fortes is not enough. I must have 3.
It's a symphony that, along with a few others, is performed most years by every orchestra. What's your earliest experience with this piece?
I think my earliest experience would have been playing it here with the CBSO. I wasn't a great listener of Beethoven even as a student. So I think the first time I heard Beethoven 7 was the day I first played it in this orchestra. And then, as you say, we've played it pretty much every year. We would have definitely played it with each music director I played under.
Yeah,
Simon,
likewise me as well, yeah.
Yeah. Conducting, I mean, probably about the 5th concert I ever conducted would have been Beethoven 7 with Symphony of Birmingham Amateur Orchestra. We took it on tour to Germany, and I think it was probably the first piece I attempted to conduct from memory, which I now can, but I'm not sure I could then. I just thought I would try it out.
It's a great touring piece, isn't it?
It's wonderful, yeah.
One of the first pieces I played here was on tour again with Andreas Nelsons in Grafenegg, and he decided to do Attacker from the 3rd movement to the 4th movement, which is an incredibly quick page turn. And the Grafenegg stage is outside, so an outside amphitheatre, and I did the quick page turn, and sadly a mosquito got in the way, and it's still, to this day, splattered in the parts. Every time I come back to it, I think, oh, that note's really short, and then I think, no, that's just the mosquito again. It's not a staccato. What challenges does a conductor face when tackling a piece like this that's so well known to both the orchestra and the audience?
The first movement is extremely tiring, let alone the last movement, which is constant semiquavers. So you have to be very aware that you're going to get a different level of energy in the concert, and if you over-rehearse them too much, you'll tire them out. Absolutely. So there's that. But then if you put that on top of the familiarity aspect of rehearsing it and an orchestra knowing it, often what you're doing is trying to find what the previous person did. And most of the time you hope that it's fine. And then occasionally, you'll get to a point and go, no, actually I'd quite like this, which might be the exact opposite of what the previous conductor did last year or 18 months ago. I mean, you must know that as a player. You think, oh, right, which way are we going to do it this time?
Yeah, I suppose the parts are full of markings from all sorts of conductors, all sorts of times that you've done it. Do you find that you spend a lot of the time trying to sort of clear that palette and start afresh, or do you?
A little. I mean, some conductors would buy their own set of parts.
Yeah.
And fill it up with their dynamics and phrasings and especially bowings in the strings. You know, as an ex-player, I know that one day a bowing will work and the next day it won't. And you know, so I think if I did that, I would always be ended up re-editing my own edits to things.
Yeah.
So yeah, what I generally tend to do is see what comes at me. I mean, the analogy I like to use is an orchestra is like a cake. I'll stand and start conducting, and then a cake will appear in front of me. Then it's my choice as whether I like the cake or not, whether I want it to be 2 tiers or 3 tiers, or whether I might turn it from a square cake to a round cake. But I quite like to see what the orchestra gives me in the first place, rather than saying, right, you're all eggs, butter and flour and salt, and I'm going to make you into a cake. I think an orchestra has its own identity, don't you think?
Yeah, I hope it's a delicious cake.
I'm sure it will be a delicious cake. No, literally hundreds of other conductors have conducted this, thousands before me. Am I going to be the magic person who finds the missing thing that nobody's ever seen before? I think it unlikely, but I want to get my own vision across. It could be, you know, 4 different metronome marks different from the last person, or an articulation or a balance of a chord, or the way you turn a corner.
Yeah.
But it's so familiar. It's difficult, but I think it can be done.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Mike. It's been wonderful talking to you, and look forward to the performance.
Thank you.